It's a stone's throw difference between what we saw last week and this one. It's a track that has all of the high-speed nature that gives you all of the fun of great close racing. But when it was a complete battle at Fuji Speedway, there will be more battling to come here at Thruxton, a track which is billed as possibly the fastest racetrack in the United Kingdom. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the Grand Prix legends here. 2025 season number 2. My name's Jake Sperry. Along with me in the commentary booth for this one on this former airfield is Nicholas Hillebrand, with Christian Deploy in a director's chair using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But to Thruxton, one of the newer circuits on the iRacing schedule, a circuit that is built for close racing time and time again. If you haven't seen it in the national scene of UK racing, well, here's your chance to now with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Thruxton Circuit. Like many British tracks, it originated as an airfield and turned out to be ideal for motor racing after the war. However, unlike many circuits with those roots, the runways themselves were less of a basis for the layout than the service roads surrounding them. The 3.8 kilometers, or 2.35 miles, is split up by a mere 12 corners, and most are long, fast, flowing turns. Indeed, the only two major braking zones are chicanes added at the start and end of the lap. And even these are distinctly different, with Campbell, Cobb, and Seagrave being more open, while Club is tight and compact. The fast nature and small size means touring cars and lower-level open-wheelers are the main staple of this place, along with the British tradition of motorcycle racing. But notably, Damon Hill once brought his Williams FW15C and set a 57-second lap back in 1993. Sat almost perfectly split between Bristol and London, it's a highly accessible track on the south end of the island. Plus, having been open since 1950, it's garnered a pretty passionate fan base. Joining a slew of UK circuits on iRacing, it will no doubt please sim racers just as much here in the virtual world.
When it comes to this circuit, it is the high-speed thrill ride that you get each and every single time. But Nico, this is a track which is going to have a lot of technicality to it, despite what it traditionally brings to the table. You've got that massive run coming out of Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave all the way around the top side of the circuit before the last great braking zone at that club chicane.
Absolutely. It's one of those really, really fast and clean circuits, much like Goodwood, also an airfield circuit that also, like, both of them are still active as airports as well in the middle of the track. You really have to be clean all the way through, and it's just such an incredibly fast run. And despite it being an airfield, actually quite a bit of elevation change as well.
Yes, and so you got that little bit of difference between top and bottom here in Hampshire in England. The south coast, we find ourselves about 15 miles away from the two port cities of Southampton and of Portsmouth out there here today. So we will be expecting drivers to be going out there full bore for the racing action that they have. The championship, though, did take a little bit of a turn last week with the non-participation of car number 1, Aldris Valentarius, which means that Jorge Nieva, despite running into troubles over at the track of Fuji Speedway, was able to ascertain the championship lead, leading by 28 over Bill Tyler, whose consistency puts him second, and Aldris Valentarius, who now moves up into third. John Olsen goes fourth with Nicola Cocchi in fifth, and Seb Tixier now into sixth position. Robert Plumley then leads Gary Ho with Matthew Keane currently ninth, and Akuliski rounding out the top 10, 84 points adrift. Then in at that 10th position. For those with a little bit of a lower I rating, the F2 standings, though, Nico, are looking a little bit more like a runaway.
Yeah, Roberto Pangrassi with very consistent results so far in the F2 standings, followed by Thomas Tuber in P2. Not too far behind is Ben Summers, only 3 points, and only 2 points after that it comes Mats Linden in 4th place. Then in 5th place we have Tobias Helmvey, also quite close behind. Then Jonathan Jourdain, followed by Thomas Villerhausen and Eric Asari in 8th place. And then we finally have also still very, very close behind Donald Peake in 9th place and Mitch Heller, not too far behind either, in 10th place.
Yep, so still a lot to play for in that championship effort, and we'll be keeping our eyes peeled on that as they go. The Cup of Nations move into the hands of Spain after last week's racing, so Lithuania with a little bit of work to do to try and pull themselves up in the standings. It then follows Singapore and Italy third and fourth, with the United States making up the top five, split by just under 40 points. The United Kingdom's a little bit further away, having to scrap with Australia here, 6th and 7th, with Finland finding themselves 8th, Denmark in 9th behind just 4 points adrift of the Finns, and then the Netherlands are there in 10th position and have 7 points to catch over to Denmark. But in terms of the racing action here today, it's worth pointing out this is iRacing official racing here with your Grand Prix Legends Lotus 49s. This is, of course, your 5th round of the championship. And so, Nico, when you set up these 29 laps worth of racing, this is as bog standard as it gets.
100%. It's as we saw already on the tracker, 3.791 kilometer circuit, 29 laps, open setups and no spare cars. There's a drive-through at 17 incident points, so that is, off tracks, loss of control, so spinning out the car and not recovering it, or, of course, collisions, the old 4X, and a disqualification at 25 incident points. So it's not only important to stay clean with keeping up the momentum and not making mistakes, but also keeping it clean of staying on the track and staying out of each other's cars.
Yep, and keeping out of trouble with these massive front and rear tyres that they have today is sometimes a little easier said than it is done, but we are in the thralls of qualifying at the moment. The 8 minutes that they have to traditionally set a qualifying lap time, with 2 available lap times to put their time on the board together, as we currently watch around and see who is going to jump on up the order and find their times. As it stands, it's Topi Courtiniemi who's 3/10 clear at the top of the times on a 1:11.1, but you got cars like the number 25 there of Josephine Becker on screen trying to improve on this second lap, and there is car number 2 also looking to improve. That's Jacob Reed. He's just pulled the car off because his second lap isn't going to be enough for improvement, so he stays exactly 3/10 of a second behind. Mick Claridge is currently out there on a lap at the moment, but so too are your top 2 in the championship, which are Jorge Nieva and Aldris Valenteius.
Yeah, they're still out and about, obviously not yet set a lap time. So, everyone is obviously quite confident. They got a decent lap in for now. Courtiniemi is obviously going to be quite happy with the provisional first place right now. But we, of course, still have, this man here, Aldris Valenteius, as he said, still on a lap. And he's proven last season and also this season when he's been attending the races, he is the man to beat.
Certainly is, rushing out of Church Corner and working his way now along the back stretch, climbing Woodham Hill and over towards the club chicane, and they can absolutely batter these curbs he goes through. Very tight line on entry from Valenteius, not something that we're used to seeing as he tries to get a little bit of a kick of tail coming out the corner. 4th fastest with his first lap then on a 1:11.5. He'll have another lap to go. Nieva only P number 9 with his first effort of an 11.8, and as he comes out of Seagrave Corner, he'll now work his way through this fast left here of Noble at 190 kilometers an hour, setting up the big long side of the circuit here with Goodwood, Village and Church.
Absolutely. And it's also this slightly downhill, so it's a little bit off camber, slightly downhill. You gain more and more speed down through Church. That should be Church here now. And through Brooklands. Also, named after another old classic British racing circuit. And now, slightly up the hill again, hard on the brakes. You can see the front compressing into club chicane. Keep it tight, keep it tidy. Over the curbs, quite hard. Chicane, much like Goodwood Circuit as well, just a bit more, a bit less threatening, actually, because no walls on each side. And 11.6. So a bit of an improvement there. And here comes Valenteius with his second run.
Well, it was just one position for Nieva, has Valenteius found 4/10 of a second, 11.259 last time over the board. So that will be everybody done in qualifying, and the grid is now stacked as you see it. Your front two, Topi Courtiniemi and Andreas Valenteas, two incredibly quick drivers on the front of the grid. Jacob Reed will start himself in third position with Nicola Cocchi in fourth, and it's an all-British third row with Mick Claridge and Jack David Spickett. Leo Sequeiro will go from seventh with Jorge Nieva, the championship leader, having work to do from eighth with Seb Tixier starting ninth, and Kevin Verbruchen rounding out your top 10.
Next up, we've got the sixth row with Gary Ho and Glenn Becker. We have Matthew R. Keane in 13th and Alex Ingelmo in 14th place on the 7th row. Then you have the 8th row with John Olsen next to Benjamin Choco, followed by Cam Porter and Matthew Maudsley in row 9. Then next up, we've got Rowley Wallbank in front of our Formula 2 championship leader, Roberto Pangrazi, in row 10.
32 drivers here today, and on that 11th row of the grid will be Mitch Heller with Tobias Hanvey there in 22nd. Michael Grissinger and Thomas Willershausen will go from the 12th row. 25th belonging to Andres Bruno, and Josephine Becker will start in 26th. It's then Robert Plumley, the world of Kinducci, with a poor qualifying for his standards. He's got Eric Asari along with him. Ben Summers, the last driver to set a time, in 29th position, which means that for Jamie Ascaro, Donald Peake and Robert Reynolds, they will be 30th, 31st and 32nd, split by just their iRacing out there in this field. It's a very long run back in terms of the starting grid, and it will go all the way back beyond the club chicane because there are so many drivers. But immediately the green flag drops and we're underway. And it's a slow start from the second row from Jacob Reed, who bogs down and loses 1, 2, 3 places through the opening corner there of Allard, and that will mean that everybody is now trying to line up as they run over towards the triple right, left, right of Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave, and Valenteas off the road as he goes through trying to challenge Courtiniemi. Couldn't quite get it done going through the opening section, still too wide as they head to Seagrave corner, and Sequeiro just gets the run done on Jack David Spickett, a former champion.
As you said, really shocking start from Jacob Reed, who we're focusing on right now in the number 2. Now we have Jack David Spickett against Leo Sequeiro there. I think also just got past, and the next one, the number 9 of Septixia, is following through. The inside line wide open, and the Honda liveried Leo Sequeiro just not able to quite close the door in time there.
No, he was very much hung out then as they run through Village and going through now Church Corner and making that charge back towards the final section of this circuit. And now they're starting to fan out as they go through Brooklands here. Nieva searching now for the inside here, trying to get it done on Sequeiro. Gets it done lovely as there's car 12 of Jack David Spickett holding his margin quite nicely. We've got one car in the pits then from the opening lap's worth of racing. That is Thomas Willershausen, who's found himself troubles on the opening lap of the race. So one car already in trouble, and that was not what he was hoping for to start this race out.
Yeah, that's always the big tricky part, you know. You can make up the most positions on lap 1, and especially around here where you have such a, well, slipstream fest, and where you can take, you know, multiple lines through the corner and go alongside everywhere basically. You try to make moves when you can, when the field is still close together, but that of course means that, well, accidents are not that far away either, and unfortunately for Willershausen, it didn't work out for him that well.
Well, Josephine Becker is also down in the pit, so she's in a little bit of trouble out there on this circuit. But Valenteas here in the blue and the yellow, a sim racer who's had more than a decade's worth of experience, has raced up against some of the best that sim racing can offer, for example, the likes of Alexia Lomar in the past, around 2012, 2013, where he was starting to make a name for himself up over the curves and now looking to attack off the exit. Courtiniemi happy to lead this race with Valenteas in tow. It's then Nicola Cocchi, the Italian, in third. Mick Claridge, who has got a bunch of wins in this series, and the fast lap is fourth. And Tobias Harvey, that is a demolished rear suspension, and that'll be him day done.
That was the second car there as well. I couldn't quite identify it from the angle we had on the camera, but of course, really, really disappointing to drop off this earlier. That could have been, yeah.
So I think Roberto Pangrazzi was looking to turn in for the corner, and Tobias Harvey has been, I think, so lucky that there's actually catch fence down there at the club chicane to end the lap. So a huge accident which we'll need to catch on replay at some point. But for the moment, Mick Claridge continuing on in third position, looking at Nicola Cocchi just in front, trying to get closer. But this is the difficulty that this group third, fourth and fifth have. If they decide that they can't work together, they're going to lose the back of the top two of Courtiniemi and Valentin, as those two, the Lithuanian and the Finn, would love to run away here. And this is a track built fully on momentum. I think of this as pretty much a motorsport without the dramatic elevation change.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd say it's a nice mix between motorsports and Goodwood. Well, the last chicane quite similar. You know, this entire flowing characteristic of the circuit, and all three circuits actually since 1967, or well, in this case 1968, with completely no changes to the actual track layout itself. Only curbs, walls, and some safety equipment have been added. So we're having a fully authentic experience of the race today. But I also saw just now on the timing that Josephine Becker also got knocked out. So she must have been involved in that accident as well, or just had a drop off even before that.
I think she might have been involved with Thomas Willishausen on the opening lap. She came in at the end of lap 1, so the dramas there certainly brought themselves into play. But Mick Claridge looking behind at the likes of Jacob Reed there, the Worcesterman, who sits in 5th position. He did not have a good iRacing Grand Prix Tour race yesterday, which he's a 2-time world champion in on iRacing, finished 5th after starting 17th at VIR, looking to build some momentum here in the Lotus 49s, and he's been someone who's loved the classics, but look at how much more aggressive he is over the curves. It was a little bit butchered there as he went through, and as such, he's got troubles, and Reed is straight down the inside, makes the move. There's also some slowdown penalties that came through for John Olsen, Seb Tixier, and Jack David Spickett. All of them have to serve.
That's, of course, what you really don't want to see. You're trying to attack those curbs as much as possible, but do it a little bit too much. It's always going to be a bit of a calculated risk. You saw how Jacob Reed took quite a lot of curb, but just barely avoided that, dreaded slowdown penalty to get that over and under done from Mick Claridge. But, yeah, just do it a little bit, like a millimeter, a centimeter too much, and all of a sudden you're losing yourself. Even though it says a couple of tenths, slow down for 0.7 seconds, we all know it's quite a lot more than that.
Nieva keeping himself close here with Seb Tixier, who is currently in 7th position and a former champion. Here is the French-Singaporean driver who is there currently driving in that number 9 machine. Nieva continuing to shadow and stay close, a driver who has been so closely linked with Grand Prix legends and the like in the world of Kinducci, Robert Plumley, bringing himself then still close. The Londoner trying to get himself in on the action. That's Jamie Ascaro. She's there in front, and then in front of Ascaro, Ben Summers and Andres Bruno. This is a great day for Ben Summers. He just needs to convert. Big day for the F2 Championship. Ascaro looking down the inside, but she gets a massive wiggle through the middle of the corner.
Yeah, you mentioned the F2 Championship with Roberto Pangrossi out of the picture. Everyone behind him, of course, is going to be, well, pretty much licking their lips and looking to attack at maximum capacity because, well, he's leading by 36 points, and everyone behind that, obviously, with a win here, we get 60 points. Everyone else will be looking to attack, will be looking to place as best as they can, as we have Seb Tixier here, with the authentic Lotus 49 steering wheel, with the 8-shifter, and with the VR headset for the full immersion.
Absolutely, we love seeing this with Seb Tixier as he has to heavily defend with that Ford DFV Cosworth engine, possibly the greatest engine ever constructed in Formula Racing. Now as he's brought back with Nieva at this point, and they are at risk here of losing out, but Tixier goes a little too deep through the club chicane. He's going to have to abandon ship and go forward, and the slowdown penalties, I think, are going to come in here because you've got Jack David Spickett with one. Behind him, though, is Sequeira, who wants to try and get through. Kevin Verbruggen is in the mix as well, and Gary Ho's not a million miles away. Door left open off of Allard Corner. Over now they go through Green, over towards Campbell here out on track, and through Campbell Corner. There's no chance of the move for Sequeira, so he has to stay in line. Now it's Kevin Verbruggen who wants to try and bring in the next move, attacking out of Seagrave and back along this circuit towards Noble.
Down the inside now at the first front end bit of the circuit, through Noble and now coming towards Goodwood, where it starts heading slightly downhill. And It's just absolutely fantastic, isn't it? Seeing these cars, no downforce, no slick tires, these old bias plies. You can see how much these cars are struggling with the maximum of the mechanical grip that they can extract out of those tires. But it's always the slight little power slide where you always have to look a little bit. Is this power slide too much? Am I going to lose time here? Or can I just push that little bit more to go on the power earlier?
Oh, it's getting close for Cam Port. We see that look of concentration on his face in the bottom right corner of your screen. That was John Olsen, who's been out of position, struggling today, then trying to find a way through. Matthew Maudsley is there close as well, and now Olsen trying the outside line at the club chicane. And these drivers here are working out that they can hold the inside line and carry the same amount of speed, whether they take the outer line or the inner line. It's very difficult to make a pass down at that club chicane because of the nature of how these cars take that final chicane. They can work to the inside, and basically they've lost one of the great overtaking spaces. Big lunge comes in then from John Olsen. He can't quite get it correct and still has to stay behind, searching about at Seagrave.
Very, very last minute avoiding action, so to say.
Tixier's out. His H shifter just broke.
Oh my goodness, that is... Well, you know, it is, well, historically accurate, technically speaking. You know, we've seen that quite a lot with, you know, gearbox failures back in the day, but we don't see it as often in sim racing, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
Well, I'd love to take a look at Seb Tixier if we've got a chance to and see what exactly's happened as now we take that look, and Jacob Reed really having to fight hard here against Mick Claridge and just about manages it as they go through, but a massive disaster for Tixier as his H-pattern shifter has just given up the ghost. Here comes the lunge from Mick Claridge. Jacob Reed, there's nothing he can do as he just has to sit and see that Mick Claridge moves himself back up into fourth, but look at the time they've lost battling amongst each other here. They brought Jack David Spickett to the party.
Yeah, I was going to say, we had this quite close group from 3rd to 5th place, you know, behind Nicola Cocky, that was basically starting to catch back up a little bit to Valenteus and Korteniemi, but, you know, those two fighting, they've basically cost each other, well, better part of 2 to 2.5 seconds at least, and, yeah, that's just not quite in the grand scheme of things, is it, at the, well, the third of the way mark.
Well, they're racing for best of the rest. Here comes Porter round the outside of Matthew Keane, trying to get it done here at Church Corner as he comes along through. This next fast right-hander backs out of it, but look at this, trying to get a massive slingshot off the exit. Doesn't get the full run that's needed. Has to move all the way to the right-hand side of the circuit to try and get this move. John Olsen, I think, has picked up the best run of the three here, running to the club chicane, but is still stuck on the outside line, and it does form single track as you go through that final chicane, so has to fall back into rank and file. Great effort from there, but Matthew Keane is keeping the weight of the world behind. Valenteus with the fast lap of the race, and he pulls himself to within 0.3 of a second of Korteniemi at the front here on lap 10.
You can see them struggling to put that power down properly. You know, these guys are very, very well in control of their cars, but obviously it is a challenge lap after lap after lap with these cars. The minimum weight for this regulation was 500 kilos, and the Lotus 49, you know, famously just barely over that, with, you know, the DFV putting out already around 400 horsepower, if not a little bit more in that year. So you almost have a kilogram to power ratio, or a power to weight ratio of 1-to-1.
He shows you just how much you have to dance, and of course they've got to find the brakes through each and every corner. There's a slow car in front of these two. That's the lap down car of Robert Reynolds, who's got to try and get himself out of the way, and Mick Claridge on the radio says, thank you, I'll go through and I'll take that very nicely out there in terms of that move going through. Reed sitting there in the British Racing green that you've got there, and of course it was British Racing green because you could only have your colours, the colour of your nation back when you used to race, Nico. So the Italians had red, the Brits had green.
Yeah, the Germans had silver, and, well, there was a lot of different, well, even like paint schemes, you know, with a couple of different designs. Lithuania had yellow and green checkered. So, you know, very, very interesting indeed. As Jacob Reed is trying to look for that gap, but Claridge completely on the inside now, taking all of the momentum, but that gave the gap for Reed, but now he has to upshift. Just not quite got enough revs yet to, you know, go fully alongside.
Well, you're going over 210 kilometers an hour there. Right now, they're hitting 280 before they've got to lift out of it, hit the brakes for that club chicane. They've got to be so alert to it in these mostly cloudy conditions, and the track temperature just 29 degrees Celsius here today. So they've not got too much to work with. But I do want to point out the front of the field at the moment, as we've kept the likes of Reed and Claridge and Spickett, these three Brits, battling it along together. But Valentarius then, as we go back to Leo Sequeiro, is all over Topi Courtaniemi and is forcing one of the quickest drivers out there to go at 100%. The two best at the moment in this series are going toe-to-toe, and Courtaniemi is being put through the pressure cooker right now because Valentarius hasn't made, I would say, a decisive look at a move yet over these 12 laps of racing.
Yeah, he's putting on the pressure for sure. We could also see these constant updates there, you know, fastest lap. We saw Valentarius' name the entire time, popping up again and again. But the entire time, that's something that we don't see with just the overlay. Courtaniemi has been less than a tenth behind. So the fastest laps right now, 1:11.009 from Valentarius, and from Courtaniemi, 1:11.084. So, you know, barely over half a tenth of a second.
And I've just got word that Jack David Spickett has just had his internet go out there, so he's had a disconnect from the server, and that'll be him out here at Thruxton, and that's a real shame because he was piloting about 6th position out there in this race, and so he will now fall like a stone down the order, and has done, out of the main positions. Valentarius again stays close, coming then through turn 4 on track of Cobb Corner. 5 of Seagrave then follows, and they'll head themselves to Noble, and then the long right-handers of Goodwood Village and Church through Noble Corner. And now you can try and pick up a run here against Courtaniemi because it's a very light lift as you go through Noble, but there's no real opportunity to get it done here at Goodwood Corner. This sets up the second half of the lap, that corner, and this one coming up here of Church.
Yeah, finally turning in there. You have this little bit of tarmac on the inside as well from the old runway. Now just fully on the outside with a little bit of extra curb and AstroTurf. Now through the left-hand kink of Brooklands, up the hill, slightly over the crest there into Club Chicane. And now we also have lap traffic in the mix, so it's getting even more stressful for both of them, but both of them cleanly out of club. And now over the start-finish, down the inside into Allet now from Valentarius.
He wants it, he really wants it. Courtaniemi gets the drive off the exit here, can cover it up through Green Corner, and now as they head into Campbell at turn number 3, Valentarius now is going to have to try and knit one and pearl one, but he powers round the outside to try and steal the inside at Seagrave here. Courtaniemi just puts a bucket of power down, try and hold it, wheels churning about on the tarmac, and just like that through Noble, they'll now think about side by side. Valentarius moving to the inside, he's got the next 3 right here as his favour, but Courtaniemi doesn't give up through Goodwood, doesn't give up through Village. Will he have to have a little prayer here at Church? Try and hold on, he can't because Valentarius has got the move, but here comes the up and under.
Side by side through almost half the lap, and now Courtaniemi with the extra drive through Brooklands coming towards club, but now he has to slow down a little bit easier. No way to pass from the outside of club. And my goodness, what a move, but Courtaniemi as well, what a defense out of Seagrave. He was barely still on the track, like almost on the grass there.
He was throwing everything he could onto the floor, hoping that it was going to stick. It's not enough, and Valentarius now leads this race, and all that battling between them. Look who's joined the party in the back. The white machine of Nicola Cocchi, the Italian, sits back there and looks for his next position. He looks for his next opportunity. He's banking on these two drivers, battling it out with everything they've got, because if he manages to see them battle together, he can pick up the scraps at the table. He's just waiting for these two to go at it hammer and tongs at the halfway stage.
And that's really the big question now. Will they keep fighting like they have? Will they allow Nicola Cocchi to get in as well? And, well, you know, 3 is always better than 2 for a battle, for us, you know, spectators and commentators, obviously. But for those guys, it's obviously a big, big risk. You know, as soon as they start fighting even bigger, you know, Courtaniemi trying to look down the inside as well. putting some extra pressure on Valenteus as they go through Club Chicane again. In the background, you can still see Claridge and Reed, who have calmed down a little bit, you know, maybe trying to work together a little bit to make their way past. And no, actually, just as I say that, Jacob Reed trying to have a peek down the inside out of Club.
Yeah, it was definitely looking out of that chicane like there was going to be another chance for them to go. They've built the gap of 3.5 seconds here to Jorge Nieva and Leo Sequeira and Kevin Verbruggen. So that next train is a little bit too far out of the way. So effectively, Claridge and Reed can afford themselves the ability to fight now. They know that 4 seconds down the road, they're relying on mistakes to get themselves back in. So they realise this is all that we can race for right now. P4, P5, as Courtiniemi again shadows in the wheel tracks of Aldrius Valenteus, the gold standard of sim racing.
Yeah, really just one of those, well, those really impressive guys that can just hop in any historic car. We've got him in IMSA Historic as well. As he touches a bit of grass there, though. Now down the run through the left to Brooklands, and Courtiniemi looking down the inside, going side by side into Club. And my goodness, can they keep it together? They can keep it together. But here comes Nikolai Koki around the outside at the exit of Club, and down the front straight, and gets second place.
That was a big move. Courtiniemi had to do everything in his power to avoid the slowdown penalty. That gave him no drive off the exit. Valenteus now at 0.3 of a second has a margin, but now Nicola Koki is bringing himself to the party. And Valenteus here will be looking around and thinking, well, it's a new challenger behind, and it might be a case of how much drive. He gains an extra 10th coming out of Seagrave Corner, and that gap behind now is down to 3 seconds here between Reed, Claridge, and the leading group. So more passes like that where you can't get the move done quickly, it's only going to bring them back, and that's what they're trying to battle against here in this race, losing the time, bringing more to the party.
I absolutely agree, but if you look up to the road a little bit, there's also another car, another lapped car actually, and obviously those guys will get the blue flag. They're very good sportsmen and sportswomen here, of course, but they have to look out, of course, because just catch them in the wrong situation and you will lose time nevertheless, you know. They can do the best efforts to get out of the way, but in a section like Club Corner where you can't go anywhere else, you know, you can't just, well, dissolve into air, so to say.
Well, I'm looking at Courtiniemi, and I think he's desperate to go through, and he'll lunge down the inside here of turn number 3 on track at Campbell. He'll have to go round the outside of Cobb. There's contact. Round he goes. Toppy Courtiniemi goes for a helter-skelter ride. A 360 that will put him back into the second group now with Jacob Reed and Mick Claridge.
I think that looks like a bit of very, very unlucky netcode there. Couldn't quite see how they would have made contact, that it would send him crawling like that, but really, really unlucky for Courtiniemi. Now behind Reed as well, so, well, from one battle to the second one, but obviously not as ideal, because he's not fighting for the lead anymore.
No, he's now in that next group, and he's going to have to work with it, and Valenteus now can start to stretch his legs. 1.1 seconds now at the front between him and Nicola Koki, who sits there in second, desperately trying to hold on to those at the front. Claridge having a huge slide of tail, and that puts Jacob Reed onto the podium now, and Claridge will watch out behind because Courtiniemi's there. Rare mistake out of Mick, but that just shows you how hard he's having to work.
Claridge now also right in the fangs of Courtiniemi, looking from side to side, skidding all over the place. And obviously with a big slide like that, Claridge's rear tires will absolutely light up as well. And that's another part where you really just don't want any more influence on the tires. You don't have a lot of traction in these cars with a lot of power, and then overheated tires, that's just going to make everything even worse.
It certainly will do, and the more that you exacerbate those tyres, the tougher it is to get them back, and so that's where it is. Kevin Verbruggen now starting to look at alternative lines coming out through of Goodwood and now through Village. Here, this small kink right, which leads to the next big corner here, the next right-hander, of course, of Church. But right now, this is a 3-car group. Nieva, Sequeira, Verbruggen. I think Jorge Nieva's hoping for big battling from Courtiniemi, Claridge and Jacob Reed. He wants to mitigate as much damage as he can. Valenteus leading this race. Him down, of course, here, having to defend P6 out there. It's going to be very close in the championship by the time they leave Thruxton.
And trying to, well, obviously trying to get everything done in the last 10 laps. Obviously, we had almost 30 laps on this race, but the final third, you know, they've survived this long already. They're getting into the section now where the cars get lighter and lighter. Of course, back in the day, they didn't have fueling pit stops, so all of these cars dangerously carried all of the race fuel with them from the start. And that was, you know, around 150 to over 200 liters back in the day. So these guys are looking now at a far lighter car, but obviously with slightly more worn tires. But nevertheless, they will reach higher top speeds at the end of the straight. So they have to make their moves now because they have to use this extra pace that they got.
Yeah, and they know that it's going to be a very different race when they get to round number 6. Out there as Courtiniemi chases Mick Claridge, looking for the move. They'll have to go to the outside as Claridge defends the corner of Club at the inside and manages to do so without too much drama going over the top. Oh, Courtiniemi has to catch an absolute massive slide, and Verbruggen's in the wall and damaged and out.
Yeah, that is a completely total front suspension. There's nothing to recover that. That's really, really unfortunate for him there. And that's actually Claridge as well, traffic. Slowly. No, that was Claridge. So he also has damage, I think.
Oh, not Claridge as well. So Mick Claridge had a slowdown penalty that he had to try and serve out there on track. So he's probably served that and dropped all the time because he ran wide through Allard corner as they started. But there's a lot to unpack here. Looks like Robert Reynolds has been caught up then, and that was the instant that came along with the likes of Kevin Verbruggen, who's now in the pits, and it's going to be a long time with the damage to get going. There was also, of course, Leo Sequeira, who was side by side with Eric Asari, had also spun at that section, but Porter now staring down the barrel, potentially a top 10, but he's got to get by the Aussie Benjamin Shoko here for position. Shoko can, when he's racing out there in the lovely livery car that he's got, he's looking around and thinking top 10, that'd be great for these drivers who are both +6 for the day so far.
Yeah, some of our highest climbers. Another one is Jeremy Ascaro in 19th place, having climbed 11 places. So from 30th, he was actually the first guy that didn't deliver a qualifying lap. A fantastic result for him so far, if he can finish like that, or even maybe gain another position. But it seems he's around a couple of more positions behind. Actually now in 18th already, so in front of Plumley.
Yeah, she's doing a great job as Jamie Ascaro right now. She's got Robert Plumley behind her, and so at this point in time, I think that Plumley's going to be looking around at it, but there is Sequeiro through Noble Corners, going to get a run, and it's going to get it done on Jorge Nieva. Nieva not giving this one up, though, through Goodwood, and look at the resoluteness of Nieva, who has raced from Grand Prix Legends all the way up into this, which we got the likes, of course, of the older game that was out there, but now you look at that, Leo Sequeiro, he gave a good go of it here to Nieva, but it was just that, a good go and nothing more. Here comes the attack again, though. Door left ajar, heading over to Club. Oh, there's a little bit of contact as they hit the corner, and somehow Nieva keeps his foot in through the middle. Now they'll go side by side, just enough room given. The pinch hurts Sequeiro.
These guys really not leaving a millimeter to each other, just the tiniest bit of contact that can be deadly. There's another car stop there.
Michael
that also looked like a broken suspension. Yeah.
Lap traffic, I think, just caught himself through the revs, and the torque of the car has thrown him into the pit wall.
Really, really unlucky. I mean, the pit wall here being especially vicious. If you can remember the Robo Race time when they had these AI-controlled cars.
Oh, yes.
Just before the start of the car, just steering fully turning to the right, and the car just goes straight into the wall. Not quite at the Terminator level yet.
Not quite. Robert Plumley, though, the world of Kinducci, and there goes Jamie Ascaro into the barrier there, trying to keep the car pointed in the right direction. I wonder if there's any suspension damage to her rear out there at this point, but it looks like that she's okay and able to continue. The AusNZ driver having a little bit of a big moment out there and a lot to try and gather back, but Sequeiro continuing on his battle right now and looking for another place through the club chicane, down now to just 6 laps to go as these two cross the line here for 6th and 7th places. Sequeiro started 7th, Nieva started 8th, so Nieva's made the 2 places up in this race and is still having to defend. They're now 7 seconds off the back of Mick Claridge and Topi Courtaniemi.
Yeah, it's not much they can do anymore at this point. That's 7.5 seconds, so they will have to be happy with 6th place, I'd say, unless something happens. But of course, we never wish to anyone that, you know, they get an incident here. Cam Porter is still sawing away at Shoko.
And watch second.
Ah, indeed.
So Shoko defends on the inside, covers the place well against Cam Porter, but Nicola Cocchi's having no love with the traffic out there. Struggled to get by Andres Bruno, struggled to get by Ben Summers, and as we watch Cam Porter here going through and attacking Noble Corner, I want to keep my eye on second here because Jacob Reed has had a wonderful second half to this race and might be staring down the barrel of second overall.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely tragic start to the race, of course, dropping down 3-4 positions on the first lap, but slowly but surely working his way back up.
Well, that's
a bit deep, though. Very deep, though. And Courtaniemi is now coming back into touch as well. So Courtaniemi obviously not quite done yet with this race either. 5 laps to go, and should be almost within proper usable slipstream range as well.
Yep, so Courtaniemi's going to want to try and use that slipstream to get himself as close as he can. He's at 0.8 of a second here behind, and certainly he could be a driver who could be making a lot of progress right now in the Glacier Racing Car, one of the oldest sim racing teams in iRacing, has one of the biggest heritages out there, of course, as part of the Finnish sim racing community, and they've had drivers in their ranks like Joni Hagner, for example. I know a good friend of mine, Ossian Puhaka's been close and around with it, but Glacier is one of the big teams out there in the Finnish world of sim racing, and it's showing with Courtaniemi at the moment. Sequeiro again getting close to Nieva, but again not quite in a position to make that move. This is a thinking driver's race. You're going to have to plan it out laps in advance if you want to get the pass done.
Yeah, also making a slight mistake there, not taking quite as much curb as Nieva ahead of him, and instantly dropping back quite a lot, because with these cars, they are difficult to turn, they are difficult to accelerate out of corners, so Nieva, with the absolute ace way of doing it, well, if the car is difficult to accelerate out of the corner, just accelerate it straight. Make the corner as straight as possible.
Porter again close and getting a better drive off of the exit of the corner, but you can take that bit of a wider line, and Benjamin Shoko again can cover off Matthew Keane and Matthew Morsley. The two Matthews wait there behind, hoping for a move. So it looks like for the moment that Cam Porter again looking for the inside. It's again just covered every corner. Benjamin Shoko has got the answers which Cam Porter's trying to throw.
And they're still all over each other. Jacob Reed already back up to the back of Nicola Cocchi. Behind that, Courtaniemi basically followed them home and is now waiting for his chance to get inside. But not quite there yet, but there's more lap traffic, and that has been the big crux for Cocchi so far. Courtaniemi now with a 110.815. He's absolutely blazing.
Yeah, and struggling here, that's Jamie Ascaro just in front. They've got to get around her pretty quickly here, coming out to Seagrave Corner, because all of these drivers now are going to want to go through. Nicola Cocchi will be followed then by Jacob Reed, will be hopefully followed by Courtaniemi, but has to leave the door open. Big slide by Ascaro. Through they go, and now Courtaniemi's got to work out whether he can go through on her on the inside or the outside, where the option is then left for it. Now running through, here comes the look in front of them, Jacob Reed, big lunge, gonna have to back out of it, going into Church, and that was a case of just pray to the heavens that they weren't going to make contact with 3 laps to go, but still Jacob Reed searches now, looking hard over to the inside, hoping there's a gap, but Nicola Cocchi at the 11th hour, again, just covers off the pass.
You really have to think now, what is bigger, Reed's courage to make that move, or, well, Cocchi's absolute nerves of steel to hold against that, and they're less than 3/10 apart. Here comes Courtaniemi, less than 5/10 behind, closing down into less than 4/10. So this is going to be the fight. It's going to be do or die time.
It will be with a couple of popsicle sticks left in the air. 2 laps to go, and Jacob Reed again staying close, much more aggressive out of Seagrave corner, and now can pick up the slipstream, heading through to Noble. Won't make the move here at this left-hander, backing off from 210 kilometers an hour to 190. But now as the door opens up, you can't afford to experiment with different lines here, Nico, because you look around, Courtney will pounce on any opportunity. Just give him a sniff and he'll try.
Yeah, not just that, Reed as well. Reed is quite keen to make that move to get those places back and convert that disastrous first lap into an absolutely stellar result. There's another lapped car. They're just all driving past that on the straight, but here comes Courtney looking for the outside, trying to force Reed into a mistake, into the club chicane.
Well, trying to, but at the moment, it's going to be Cocky who has the mistake coming out of the final corner. Jacob Reed was all over him, couldn't quite get there. Courtney around the outside of Allard as the last lap starts for Valenterias. Toppy Courtney to the podium. Lap traffic in front, out the way on the left-hand side. That was Dom Peake they had to get through, and Jacob Reed throws it straight back down the inside. Courtney continues to find his line and gets there. Mick Claridge will join the scene and attack off the exit, and now it continues to go. Reed with the launch off the exit for one last spot on the podium, tries the outside at Noble and doesn't quite work. So still there's more that can be found. These 3 rights are going to set up second, third, fourth and fifth here for this podium, and who is going to end up where here in this final lap of the race? Thruxton has delivered a sensational run. Jacob Reed is almost touching the rear exhaust of Toppy Courtney coming through Church, hoping for a drive and a run, but he's not going to find it. The gold standard will be back at the top again. Aldrius Valentias will win here at Thruxton, and at consummate ease at that from the second half. Here comes Courtney, drag race to the line for second. He stole it by 6 thousandths.
Absolutely unbelievable. But Reed as well has dropped down. Reed lost it out against Claridge in the end.
Yeah, so final corner, then going into club, Jacob Reed had the back step out, and because the back stepped out, more going over towards the line as they go through. Mick Claridge was able to steal that away by about a tenth of a second. The final cars then all looking to bring themselves over towards the line. Great quiet drive by Glenn Becker, by the way, to get himself 9. But look at this as they head over towards the line. Shoko's lost out in the last lap. Cam Porter is going to get a top 10.
Bruno's getting across the line with a 3-wheeler. So getting the car in. Heller comes across the line. 14th, then 15th for Olsen. Next up, Wallbank.
Yep, so we'll wait for Alex and Gelmo, who will be the last car on the leading lap, over the line, and we will get the official classified results then here from Thruxton. And what a dramatic race that we had there, going all the way over to the line, and Thruxton delivering an absolutely wonderful showcase. But the gold standard remains on top here in Classics Racing. Aldrius Valenterias coming to the line, picking up the win in 34 minutes and 38 seconds, winning by 6.1 over Toppy Courtney, who just is able to steal that position away from Nicola Cocky at the long drag towards the line here at Thruxton. Mick Claridge would also pick up a steal through the final chicane. Jacob Reed, who was second with a couple of laps to go, finds himself back in 5th. Then at the end of this race, with Jorge Nieva picking up damage limitation points in 6th, ahead of Leo Sequeiro and Gary Ho in 8th. Glenn Becker would have a quiet run to 9th position, a gain of 3, the same as Gary Ho, but Cam Porter 7 places gained and a top 10 in the back pocket.
11th place, Matthew Arkeen gets it home to just start the second row of positions in front of Shoko, just 1 second ahead, and Shoko only 3/10 ahead of Matthew Maudsley in 13th. Then we have Mitch Heller in 14th, followed by John Olsen, also less than a second separating the two. 16th place, Rolly Wallbank, coming a little bit separated from everyone else, but a good gap ahead of Alex Ingelmo. 18th place, Robert Plumley, the first car a lap down in front of Jamie Ascaro. Of course, one of the most dramatic players in the closing laps of that battle over second place. And last but not least in the top 20, Ben Summers.
Andres Bruno over the page would be a lap down, and so too Eric Asari on 1 lap down. Don Peake would be 2 laps adrift, with Robert Reynolds at 3 laps, and then Josephine Becker and Thomas Willishausen having to get repairs sorted before going back out again. 4 laps down. They would be classified as finishers. A retiree start with Kevin Verbruggen with 10 laps to go in his race. Michael Grissinger we saw hitting the wall on the right-hand side, and then Tobias Hernvey, who found himself in the scaffold here today in the catch fence at the club chicane. Jack David Spickett in trouble with internet issues and game crashes, and then you got Seb Tixier and Roberto Pangrazzi caught out in the early stages of racing 2. So that H shifter for Tixier, a real shame, but we talk about this racing, how important it is, and the wonderful results that have come along from all of the racing action that we have had. But Nico, it is worth talking about that Valenteus was just able to build the gap that was needed to get the survival to win this race. And that's all he needed, was a chance to run away. That Courteniemi mistake completely changed the race at the front.
You have to say, though, Courteniemi, wildly impressive driver today. Your Valenteus, absolutely fantastic driver form. You know, really, really well done. Just knows how to place the car absolutely perfectly. But that finish, I want to point out the ridiculousness of that for a moment. 7,000ths of a second. Back in the 60s, they actually only timed down to the 10th of a second. So in 1967 at the German Grand Prix, Bruce McLaren and Dan Gurney scored the same qualifying time, 8:17.7. So they started right behind each other because Dan Gurney scored the time first. And at the Syracuse Grand Prix, which was a non-championship round, Mike Parks and Ludovico Scarfiotti, both for Ferrari, actually both scored the win because they scored a photo finish because they only scored down to the 10th. They couldn't identify it past that. So down to 0.07 seconds. Thank God for modern timing. That's what I have to say there.
0.007. More than what you can bargain for. We've got a couple drivers here waiting for the chance to chat to us. Topi Courteniemi is here with us first and foremost. Topi, a P2, all things considered at the end of the day, but one where you were really battling hard at the front there with Adrius Valenteus. Just talk us through what happened for you in the middle of that race, which took the victory away from you.
Yeah, we went too wide into the chicane. I was a little too cautious on the brakes, and too wide through the chicane is too much. I don't want to force the other guy to take a slowdown, and didn't want to get one either, so I had to take really awkward lines and lost a lot of time, and Nicola got in the mix, and I just wanted to get quickly ahead of him so Adrius wouldn't get away and stay in the draft range, because I knew we had the pace to battle for the win.
You had the pace, you proved you had the pace, and then that showed going through the final chicane. So talk us through getting that polar bear of Glacier Racing up into second place with that final lap steal.
Yeah, I don't know. I was planning to make a move inside Nicola in the last turn, but he just got so bad exit from the chicane that I just floored it and banked the limiter and not even shifted to fourth. I'll take it.
You absolutely will. It's a fantastic second place. It's a lot more different, though, when it comes to next week, because it is the oval round. Some drivers choose to skip the oval round. Are you going to be one of those who won't be racing at Charlotte?
Probably, because it's Road America 500 week, and we're planning on doing that. So, yeah.
Well, I don't blame you. Road America 500 week is one of the best weeks for classic racing out there on iRacing. But Topi Courteniemi then from Glacier Racing joining us and picking up second position coming over the line. Had a wonderful showcase of racing here today. The driver that he was just able to beat in third place was Nicola Cocchi. He stood by with Nico Hillebrand.
Nicola, are you here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you perfectly clear. Nicola, third place after running in second for that long of a time. Obviously must be a bit disappointing, but nevertheless, a really good race from you. Take us through it.
Yeah, I was that close to second place that to be third on the last 1,000 of a second on the line, it was a little bit harsh. But when you are against this kind of people, this fast, this consistent, it's possible that to happen. So I'm not mad at all because I didn't even knew that I had a chance to be on the podium anyway. I thought this week I was kind of slow, to be honest. But I have to thank all the fast guy in this community because they all are always willing to share telemetry setup and trip and tricks, and that makes a lot of difference for me pleb, to be able to kind of stay close to them, and that way I'm also improving my driving, which is one of the best thing of the service, to be honest.
Absolutely wonderful competitor mindset there, and of course also nice to see, of course, just everyone helping each other out. This brothership that's actually quite reminiscent of the real Grand Prix racing back in the day. So really, really awesome to hear. Are you going to be at Charlotte Oval, or are you also going to be bailing for Road America?
I'm not going to be at Oval not because of Road America, but because I don't drive Oval. I think I'm a dangerous driver in that kind of track, so I don't want to put anybody in danger, and I'm going to take a drop week. and unless I get much better on Oval racing, I don't think it's going to happen in a week lifetime span, and so I will just skip this race and go to the next one.
Gotcha, understandable. Everyone has their own preferences. Nevertheless, started fourth and finished third. Very consistent driving and just barely getting robbed at the start-finish straight. Right, 7,000ths of a second. Absolutely on the tip of our toes at the finish there. Thank you very much for a great race, Nicola.
Thank you guys for the broadcast, and I'm going to enjoy a lot to watch it later. Bye.
And bye. Back to you, Jake.
Yeah, so I've just had a little bit of a wander here at Thruxton, and I've run into a Mr. Mick Claridge here today, who's been able to snipe away a fourth position over at the line. Mick, the day for you looked like it was you and Jacob Reed pretty much for the majority of it here. It's a very tough circuit where if a couple of cars get a bit of a break, it's very tough to gather it back. You found yourself pretty much just staring at that front group for the most of that race. Just talk us through it.
Yeah, I sneaked down the inside of him at the start then. And I was thinking, oh no, because I'd never been that tight on that right-hander, turn one at the start. And I thought, please don't spin it, at the start of the race into everyone else on the outside of me. So yeah, it was good to get in front of him. But then, I'm a bit under the weather this week, so I'm running out of energy when I'm racing. So having Jacob behind me for that long was pretty good for me because it sort of forced me to speed up, I think. But yeah, it was a good fight. I've never raced him before. Seen a lot of his stuff in IMSA and Lotus 79. So yeah, I knew I was going to be in for a fight today, mate, with him behind me.
Absolutely. He's also a two-time iRacing Grand Prix Tour champion in the Mercedes W13, so he is rapid and fast. But Mick, obviously battling through the weather there and certainly having to do a lot. How intensive is it to race around this Thruxton circuit? Because people look at it thinking it's a high-speed circuit and they think it's easy, but there's a lot of nuance, especially in the Lotus 49 when it comes to this track.
Oh yeah, because you've just got to get your line absolutely right, especially through church. It's so easy to just run wide there or just miss your brake marker and turn in, and you're like, 3 car whips away from the apex. It's just relentless. But it's like that through the whole lap. It's such a brilliant track. I don't know. We've had trouble getting guys in this week, and I don't know why. Because it's like a lot of the guys have been saying, it's the best place we've ever run at. So yeah, I love it. It's a typical Lotus 49 track, it's where these cars were designed to race, That's what I love about it. Old school.
It very much is. Give it time and they will turn up and they will race this track. Just give it a bit of time. But in terms of next week, it's the oval round next week. Mick, are you another one of those looking to bail for the Road America 500, or are you looking at this thinking that, okay, it's going to be an oval round here today or next week at Charlotte? Are you looking to try and pick up maybe a little bit of an opportunity there on something that's slightly different?
Yeah, I'm all over that, mate. I'm going to be all over that. Yeah, getting Bill Tyler's set and getting all those cambers and all the stuff going on. Yeah, we're going to be rocking, mate. Yeah, no, I can't wait for that. It's such a laugh in this car, Yeah, it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Mick Claridge there joining us, picking up a 4th position overall, right on the line there. And very quickly, Nico Hillebrand is going to find himself walking down the paddock. He's found Cam Porter with a top 10 finish.
Hello there, Cam. Can you hear us?
Again, Nicholas. Thanks for having me in.
Excellent to have you here. Cam, fighting at the edge of the top 10 for the entire race, obviously gaining quite a few positions compared to your starting position as well. Take us through it quickly. How was it?
Well, that was crazy. Number one, this track is so physically challenging. You're on the edge the entire lap. There's no time to take a breather, really. I didn't have a lot of practice coming into this race, so I didn't expect much. And to be in the mid-pack is kind of normal for me at qualifying. And then I started to race, and I was racing with guys that who are normally significantly faster than me, like Ben Zocco and John Olsen. And I was like, what is going on here? Are their cars broken? And then get going in the race, and I'm able to challenge for positions, and made a pass on Ben near the end of the race that was nail biting, we'll say, teeth gritting, and was able to take 10th place. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled with my top 10 today, especially in such a strong field, 3,000 plus strength of field today.
Absolutely, and fighting at the lower requirement for the Formula One standings, but nevertheless taking the fight to the guys, as you said, that are normally faster. Always a welcome surprise, and especially around this circuit, where every mistake costs you very dearly. All about consistency, despite it being so physically challenging. How difficult is it to just keep it error-free over those entire, almost 30 laps?
That is really challenging, actually, and I think what helped me drive this car is driving supercars. Actually, we did a race. I did a race this week at Donington, and it was so slippery, and you have to be so judicious with the throttle in that car. And it's very similar to this car. So I think driving supercars helps me in other disciplines because it teaches me, it really teaches you the throttle discipline. So I think that helped me. Plus, just a couple of weeks ago, IMSA Vintage came to this track, so I think I had that experience under my belt already, which helped. So ultimately, I think everything added up to bring me home this top 10 today.
Absolutely great to hear. And supercars, obviously a lot of power, basically no differential, and very careful throttle control. Definitely something that'll help you here as well. Congratulations again. Fantastic race from you, and great moves, great show you put on for us.
Thanks, Nicholas. I appreciate the broadcast, and I look forward to watching it back later.
Well, there you have it. Cam Porter there joining us and picking up 10th position coming over the line. And as the sun begins to set here at Thruxton, we are also going to be making our moves away here from this Thruxton circuit. There is some amazing, great racing that comes up on the horizon with us at the Global Sim Racing channel. But you can see that here right now. IMSA Vintage later on today will be heading to the streets of Long Beach, California, so you can be sure that is going to be some incredible action there as they all tackle with their Audi 90s and Nissan GXPs that they've got there. Skip Barber Race Series tomorrow is hitting the grand course of VIR. Your classic Lotus Grand Prix series, of course, on Easter Sunday is also going to be at the Circuit of the Americas, and the Porsche's Owners Club is going to Road America over, of course, on the 22nd-23rd of April. You want to make sure that you jump on in and catch all of that with us. I want to give a massive thanks to the team who's been here today. Of course, we got this in a week's time. It's the oval round that we hit at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The 2018 version of the track is where the oval's going to be run, so that is going to be worth its weight to watch out at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So keep that in mind for the calendar as you go through. But I do want to give thanks to the team here today, from Christian Deploy, who's been behind the scenes as director, from Dougie Beard's cameras, and of course Nico Hillebrand, who has been alongside me today. My name's Jake Sperry, and that was always going to be a tough fought race. It could have been two fighting for the victory right at the end, but halfway proved that there was no chance of that going to happen. Still, 2 amazing steals, and the final couple of corners of this race will give a huge boon of confidence to those who made them, Topi Courtiniemi and Mick Claridge. But one thing is for certain, there is a gold standard when it comes to classic racing, and that gold standard has just one name: Audrius Valentarius. We'll see you in a week when we battle some more when it comes to racing action, and we'll see you over at Charlotte.